right, welcome in. Late night Michigan basketball post-game live. The Wolverines prevail in the Lone Star State. It might not have always looked like it tonight, especially with the way Michigan was coughing it up and one of the headlines of this game. But in the end, their size, or if I steal a phrase or a word from the Lions, the grit of the Wolverines pays off, and they are able to prevail over TCU 67-61 in a game that they trailed at the half. They turned it over 22 times, and they didn't shoot particularly well, and they didn't close it out in what you would say great fashion. Although, they won the game in the last 10 minutes, being able to use their size and hit the glass and just wore down the Horned Frogs, who were hanging in there. Woo! This one, it's if this was March, you would look at this team and you'd say this team's not going to be able to win anything. Meanwhile, it's not. I mean, it's November. And so you always have to put it's hard. It's hard for me. It's hard for you. It's hard for everyone to put a team in what's happening into context. And I'm not over here saying, oh, well, hey, it's November. They've got a gel. And I'm sure Dusty's going to say some of those things. They've got some work to do. We know that. It was a sloppy, really sloppy, ugly first half. If you watch Michigan, you're like, this team, they're not going anywhere. Playing like this, and you got to remind yourself, all right, a lot of new players, and it might end up looking like this. The positives in this one, I thought that after seeing Ade Mara play like he did last game, and everybody understandably was worried about Yaks, and I thought that the presence, the size, and the ability of Michigan's front line in different games, there's going to be a different guy that would be able to show up with the different skill sets that they have. And it was Mara last game, running the impressive impressive scoring line that he did. And tonight, teams, Jamie Dixon's no stranger to looking at the tape and knowing what to do when you have a big man that shows out like Mara did last game, and they blitzed him, they doubled him, forced the ball out of his hands. We'll get to him, but in the end, this was Morez Johnson Jr. who made the key plays, and the TCU was not able to handle him. He was the one that showed out and was the biggest reason that Michigan won this game in the end. And Yaks, you look at it, we'll look at his numbers. Nothing, it wasn't spectacular, but his size and his length paid off a little bit here for Michigan as well. Now, that's what I saw in this game. As always, if you're up late and you have any points that you want to get in, you certainly can as I take you through this one. It was a close one. Offense overall struggling. Looking at the numbers, better than the 4 of 25 performance that they had last game and were able to get by, but still 5 of 16 from downtown. You're going to have to do better than that. And the thing that jumps out, those 22 turnovers by Michigan, and they shot 43% from the field. If you look through it, they did not play exceptionally well. Just watching them, aesthetically watching them move the ball around, it's like they have a hard time. They don't have. You say these are some things that I recall saying last year. They scare you when almost everyone has the ball and they pass it and they put it on the floor. It's scary because you think something bad is going to happen. And that's just the truth. And that's not, shying away from whatever. It's something, if you watch them, that you have to think yourself. I can't believe that you would just say, oh, no, they'll be able to round this into shape. There was one point, it was in the second half. Let me see if I can remember when it was. It might have been Mara who just threw it away. And they went over to Dusty, who was standing there, and he just had his hand on the scores table, and you could look at him, this expression. He was just like, I don't know what these guys are doing. I mean, there's turnovers, and then there's bad turnovers, and they just had a bunch of bad turnovers. And Elliot Cadeau, I mean, this is Michigan's point guard. He has to be good for Michigan this season. And tonight he was not good. Hopefully this is the poorest game that he plays all year long, but he just did not have it. He was turning it over left and right. He just was out of sorts, couldn't do anything, couldn't shoot. And, obviously that's not good. I mean, you need your point guard. I don't know how many teams, are stacked at point guard, and, you're and it is new, and he's got to adjust to his teammates, and they have to adjust to him. So maybe there's, and like you said, hopefully better days are ahead. But it was a huge struggle for number 3 tonight for Michigan. But they win this game, and they're sitting here 3-0, and now they've got a game coming up that they should win, and then they're going to Vegas to play in a tournament where they've got Auburn, First San Diego State. And then I was just looking, and I'll put the list up of all the teams that are in there. There's a bunch of teams that are in the top 25 that if Michigan wins those 2 games, whoever they would play in that third game, if they get to the a championship type situation, the current number 1 team in the country, Houston, who knows if they'll be number 1 when they play in Vegas, but Gonzaga, Tennessee, Alabama, just to name some of the teams that they will run into when it comes down to it. This game here, a close one. And in the end, defense size gets U of M its 3rd win of the season, its first road game of the year. If you go back and look at the first half of this one, it wasn't pretty. TCU got up by as many as 8. Michigan did close the gap to just 2 points at the break. It was 35-33. Horned Frogs at the half. Michigan had 11 turnovers. And then TCU it was a 4-point game with TCU with the lead midway through the second half. So Michigan was behind that whole time, that first 10 minutes. And then finally, the Maize and Blue tied it up with 7 left. And then U of M took the lead for good in the second half at the 5:37 mark. But I started, looking at the key plays after Michigan took the lead with 5:37. Morez Johnson Jr. Again to put up Michigan up by 7. And that's, with under 3. And then with under 2, it was Johnson who made those big plays that gave Michigan a little bit of a cushion. And then I would have to credit Namari Burnett. Cadeau had an offensive foul with 36.4 seconds to go. Michigan's up by 2. TCU has their chance there. They put up a shot. I don't know if you'd say great defense. Michigan didn't foul, and they really didn't have a clear defensive rebound. The ball just kind of went around, and it just ends up in Namari Burnett's hands. That's great, but the big part for Namari is that he stepped up to the free throw line, and he ends up dropping both of the free throws. Those are clutch free throws to get Michigan up and make it a 2-possession game, and that was it. So great job by Burnett with those clutch free throws at the end to help Michigan win this one 67-61. And I have 21 turnovers. I just looked at the box score. It was 22 in the end. So that's how it ended up going down. Michigan ranked 6th heading in, and Ken Pom dropped Michigan down a couple spots to number 15. As always, when we're here, we take your feedback after the games. Ferris, I know he's a West Coast guy, so of course he's up. He liked the rebounding. He did not like the turnovers, but he likes the road win. He says he'll take it. And you had the old Red, the quarterback from TCU from a couple of years ago in the Fiesta Bowl, sitting down there on the sideline, and Michigan did get revenge for that Fiesta Bowl by getting the W. Gabby Taylor asking me if I know K-pop groups. I don't know where that's coming from, why you would ask me that question. I don't. I do know when it comes down to, I don't know if this is a K-pop group or if this even, if it is a Korean person. I think it is, but I watched the White Lotus season 3 this past year, and I was drawn to one of the actors. Mook was her name, and come to find out, she's a huge and popular singer over in Asia, but I don't know if she is in a group or ever once was a group. Lisa, I believe her name is, because I've now have followed her after that. She did a great job in the White Lotus. So yeah, I guess that would be my answer, whether it would be correct or not. That's my extent, or that would be my swing at K-pop. Mook from the White Lotus, whether it's correct or not. Who knows? You get on late at night, anybody can come on in. You get somebody called Whiplash Ducky Gaming coming in and just saying hi. Let's go. And here's BK is talking about Dusty's 2 biggest weaknesses, and they rear its head again. Turnover discipline, timeout management at the end of the game. Guys don't set anything up as a clock winds down and goof up. Now, I am going to say that both of those items are, I think, fair criticisms. What can you say? If you look back to last year, one of Michigan's bugaboos were turnovers. He was asked about them all the time. And towards the end of the year, I even sensed a bit, and I haven't sensed much frustration from Dusty May. I can recall asking him at one of the last news conferences that he had about turnovers, and he looked a little frustrated about it. It was basically like, yeah, we've worked on it all year long, and here we are, and this is what we have, and it's still happening. So yeah, I think that's fair. And I also think the timeout management for the entire game, you can, I say, be critical. You can certainly question it. And sure, coaches like to, point to, you trust your guys. And I like a coach that's going to call it. If you are trusting your guys and they know how to take care of the ball and they get it in the spots that you want, well, then you understand that as a coach. But this team, last year's team, this year's team, looks like they need to be have their hand held, and certainly in the most important spots. So calling timeouts and getting that board and telling them exactly what you want, I think is more than fair, and is something that is a question mark over Dusty. So I think, BK, I'm with you on what you're saying there. Yeah, like I said, hey, late night action going on it. And here's SW Lion 26, a Michigan fan through and through. He says, hey, they managed to pull it out. Here's smash the numbers. Is he putting numbers up here? He says, no, the court paint was an optical illusion. It looks a little like ski moguls all over. I would have rolled my ankle playing there. I bet that was a factor. Now, I don't know how old you are, Smash, but this is modern basketball. If you've watched the last few years in the NBA, they've, I think this is the 3rd year where they have the NBA Cup. I tuned into the Pistons game and they won again. It's amazing with guys you've never heard of, but I was watching the Pistons game and I turned it on and I'm like, whoa. I mean, I was looking at it and you thought the TCU court was bad. I'm watching it and I'm thinking, this is distracting me. I don't know how it's not distracting them. But, after I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes. It didn't look like a pinball machine anymore. That looked like they were playing on a pinball machine surface, or something like that, and it wasn't all that big of a deal. I remember when Oregon came out with their court and they had the evergreens and it looked wild, and I thought that's distracting. I don't know. I think I just get used to it, and it was the same thing with TCU, and maybe I don't know. You're not the only one that was talking about the court, so I hear what you have to say. BK coming back, and he says, smash the last 2 games. Very awful looking courts. The way the light reflects can affect the visibility and psyche, like shooting on a hoop without a net. Yeah, like I said, the courts, you're away. You don't have a say in it. So you get there at the shoot around, you get to deal with the court. Actually, the day before, you can get an hour practice when you go in. And then certainly, you talk about the background a lot. I think that would affect, thinking just at different arenas. Obviously, when you have a dome, that affects perception of things, but can the court and the lights but that's modern basketball. That's not going anywhere. Where they play on the road, you could have the other team wearing, fluorescent, third jerseys or something, and the court can look like a carnival. You got to deal with it. So that's it when it comes down to it. Brian says after this one, Ken Palm's going to drop him to the 20s. I think I hear you on that. Michigan, go blue, 1, 2, 3, 4. Speaking of great Michigan fans, he's one. He says, I swear Yaxel is playing mind games. 1 minute, he looks incredible, 1,000% healthy. Example, the and one. And another minute, he's wincing in pain after getting fouled on a rebound. Yeah, Yaks tonight was, I think, as you say, there's times when you're looking at him, you say, oh, this is the Yak. Oh, he's the one. I think that when it comes to Yaks for me, we like that starting lineup of Mara, Morris, Johnson Jr., and Yaks down there. But that puts Yaks at the 3, and that puts Yaks out of the paint, and a lot of times it just puts him over on the corner, and he's standing there, and maybe he kind of just slides up a little bit, and maybe Yaks wanted to come to Michigan because he wanted to be a 3, and he wanted to play outside. But when Yaks is the 4, and he's down low with either Mara or Morez Johnson, when one of those 2 guys are on the bench and Yaks is in there, that puts him at the 4, he looks more dangerous down there. He can, if his opposite number, he can attack down low, and he can also then take them off the dribble. It seems a better spot for him if he's operating at the 4 and down low, and then he could pop out and be a positionless 4 rather than being a 3 where he is initiating the offense outside. That's an observation that I made as I was watching the game tonight. So I hear what you're saying about the back and forth with him. Brian is not buying any of the paint on the court. He says that's a ridiculous excuse. If somebody was using that excuse for the amount of turnovers, I would say that's true. For us that is watching it, you can say I don't like it or whatever else, but for the players, they got to deal with that. CK is talking about Cadeau being out of control. Another season of subpar point guard play. Come on, Dusty. Well, it's one of the stories coming out of this game. Cadeau, Michigan won, but Cadeau, had a poor game. And you think back to last year, Michigan turned it over a lot, and they had Trey Donaldson as their point guard, and he ended up going the U, I think, Miami. And you thought that the Trey Donaldson had turned it over, that he turned it over too much. And then Dusty got Cadeau, and you're like, oh, hey, this was the kind of the narrative, at least what I was reading about him when they got him. He's a true point guard, a true point guard. A true point guard, I guess it means that he's looking at a pass first, not a score first. I like Trey Donaldson, at times, but, I get the criticism. He turned it over, and maybe he looked for a shot too much. But Cadeau, statistically, turned it over more than Donaldson at Carolina. He was pretty much a turnover machine. So he comes in, and you're like, hey, we really need to tighten things down and work on the turnovers. We're bringing in the this guy turned the ball over more than Donaldson. So, out of subpar, mid. I mean, you don't want to be a mid point guard. You don't want to be subpar. Obviously, you don't want to be mid. You want to be better than that. They're going to need better point guard play. I am the only thing that I'm going to say. I think the criticisms are understandable. They're fair, and I think they're spot on. I only think that we need to say that it's, 3 games into the season. It's November. If I am sitting here in 2026 and I'm crying about turnovers in a game and Cadeau's out of control and they're not going anywhere with this kind of point guard play, well, then, then what are we going to do? We're going to, it's going to be frustrating. You know how many times last year, go back and watch all those shows, is going to say, what it looks like is going to happen to Michigan is that they're not going to win anything big because they turn the ball over too much, and it's going to end up costing them. That's what it looked like. Well, they ended up, they hung in there pretty good up until the last week or so in the Big Ten to win the Big Ten last year before Michigan State won it. They obviously won the Big Ten tournament. They did a hell of a job there. And then they won 2 games in the NCAA tournament. It ended up being a successful season. So did the turnovers that were prevalent last year really cost them? I thought that they, hit their ceiling and maxed out last year. Now, I'm not going to be sitting around. It's just something to say. I think they need to be better. It's kind of like on the football side saying, well, who cares? Let's just have them run the ball. Who cares about the passing offense as long as they win? You say, yeah, well, I don't know how long you can hang your hat on that. It's not just winning ugly. And it's the same thing with this basketball team. Yeah, winning is, the name of the game and everything, but coughing it up and it's the silliness of them. There was one turnover that, Morris Johnson Jr. kind of batted and it went over the corner, it went out, and you're like, all right, you get that kind of turnover. There was one time Mara, who, I don't know, what did he have, like 5 turnovers? And, he's got a couple behind. He's supposed to be a great passer. He's a good passer. I don't know about great passer. Great passers, when they're throwing him around the back, don't get him picked off. He got pushed off his spot one time, and, he kind of, it could have been a foul. I understand that one. But the rest of them, he just got a little bit loose. And here's what happens, and what Mara is going to have to deal with. When you have a great game like he did in game number 2, you're the focal point of the other team. They're like, how are we dealing with this 7'3" dude with a 7'7" reach wingspan? Well, the answer is that you blitz him immediately when he has the ball and make him make decisions. And Mara is a little bit too loose and not strong enough. He's got to get way stronger, and he's got to be better. Instead of worrying about flipping it behind his back or no looking, I would suggest it to all of them. I would make the suggestion that let's forget about no looking. We need to walk before we run when it comes down to passing. But they've got a lot of guys like that. Roddy Gale, he's a straight line driver, does a lot of nice things, but man, he'll throw the ball into the stands, dribble it off his leg. And, he's one of the guys you're counting on, and you're putting your hand on your head. Cadeau has been doing the same thing. Namari Burnett, he's fine driving to the basket, but I would almost suggest to him, don't pass. Shoot or drive. That's it. So, woo, man. BK taking us back to COVID. He said players admitted it messed with their psyche to play in an empty stadium. It's just your mind and body get used to a certain environment. Yeah, that was, I would say, I don't remember specifically the player saying that because look, you practice so much, you practice in an empty gym. Yeah, the crowd gets you hyped up, and the juices are flowing and everything like that. But that's COVID, and you're going back to talking about the floor. Yeah, hey, Keegan putting down the bottom line, 3-0. Somebody was asking about the rebounding discrepancy. Brian puts it up here. Says Michigan shot 43% from two, 31 from downtown, 42-20 the rebound department, 20 plus 20 advantage. It's the turnovers. We'll get to the box score and upcoming schedule and the early signing period for Michigan basketball here still ahead. Let me read this from M-Go Blue. He says, keep winning ugly and running the ball 25 straight times equals Bryce might leave. Oh, we're going to football. He says, I held my breath with some of those high passes and almost crashed into our bench in the second half. Yeah, the Cadeau threw one. Yax has a, what does he have? I have it written down. What does that say? He has a 7'4" wingspan, Yax. And he was standing there, and Cadeau threw it over his head by, a foot. Oh, you got to really airmail one. So then it wasn't just Cadeau, then it was McKinney threw one, and he had to go up and jump. And all right. I mean, if you got guys that can, with a wingspan at 7'4" and you're airmailing them, you're in trouble. Well, that's it. Ryan, for some reason, thinks he's on a Knicks. I think the Knicks won tonight. And it was Towns that went off without Brunson there, Brian. There's your Knicks update. Let's take a look at that box score. If I can click it in, I can. There it is. Yax had 14 points, 10 boards, and 4 assists on 4 of 6 shooting, 1 of 2 from downtown. Nice job at the free throw line for Lindenborg. 5 for 5. And also had 3 blocks. That's a pretty nice stat line there for Yax in game 3. I don't think we need to. There was a point where you're like, maybe, Yax is going to be a bigger adjustment, but he came alive a lot in the second half. My player of the game would be Morris Johnson Jr. 10 points, 12 boards, and also had a pair of blocks and a steal, and he made the biggest buckets down the stretch for Michigan when it was winning time. MJJ, our Maize and Blue review player of the game. Namari Burnett had 8 points and 1 board, but he missed the free throw in the first half, but then hit the 2 with just a few seconds to go to make it a 2-possession game. Clutch free throws by Burnett. Nice job by him. And you go to Mara, who was coming off that monster game, 6 points, 6 boards. They only have him down for 1 block, and they had 5 turnovers. Maybe he was going to have one of those kind of triple doubles that you don't want. 10 points, 10 boards, 10 turnovers, or something like that. But I don't know how many times Fran said it, and I thought, well, this is a funny. He said there. He scared a lot. He was calling it. He would spook a lot of people by, his 7'7" wingspan. And it became one of the things they were talking about. And then you get to Cadeau, who had a game you'd rather forget. And like I said, hopefully this is his poorest game of the year. 3 points, 5 boards, just 1 feed for the point guard, who was 1 of 6 from the floor, including 1 of 3 from downtown. And he had 6 turnovers. So that's why people are going to, you're supposed to be a Final Four team. this is your prized point guard. He puts up a game like this. The criticism is fair. I think along with the criticism and his poor game, I think you immediately say it's 3 games in. They are going to gel. It's November. They are winning these games. He's got to play a lot better. So, I mean, all of those things I think are fair in talking about Cadeau. Trey McKinney, pretty awesome player. And, he made, to me, I don't remember exactly when it was. It was on the baseline, though. He made the sweetest pass of the game, I guess for his only assist. So you could look through the box score and the play-by-play and end up finding which one it was. But 11 points, 1 board, and an assist for McKinney, who was perfect from the free throw line and 24 minutes of play. And what you can see is that McKinney is first off the bench, and he totally has the green light, and you want him to shoot, and he is going to shoot when he's got it. Gale, not too bad for Roddy Gale. He gets into double figures, 10 points, 3 boards, 6 assists. And you're going to take this from Roddy Gale Jr., 4 of 4 from the free throw line. You like that? Only 2 turnovers. You sign me up. I think before you sign up for at least 2 turnovers before they even throw the ball up when you're talking about Roddy Gale. LJ Kaysen can take anybody in the country off the dribble and get to the cup. That's what I think about him. Other than that, he's not a great dribbler. He's not a great ball handler overall or passer, but you need someone to go get you a bucket and take somebody off the dribble. Kaysen's the one. Cheddar has not had a good start to this season, and he did not have a good game. Goose egg, 3 boards and a feed, 0 of 2 from downtown. Look, Cheddar plays extremely hard, throws his weight around, gives 100% effort, and he's a deadly shooter. But he has not been at the start of this year. So if you wanted to criticize Cheddar, I think you could do that. Oh, there you go. Keegan's asking if I would like to see McKinney at point guard. Well, there are times when they put McKinney in that he is the point guard, secondary ball handler. Do I think that he would start over Cadeau? I think they might be in trouble if that's going to be the situation. But the sky's the limit for McKinney. And I think if you start to get to it in an emergency situation, because Kaysen, I don't trust any of them is the thing. And we haven't really seen McKinney do it. So right now it's one of those things where you need Elliot Cadeau just to play better. Tank says the turnovers need to stop. Cheddar is a carnival ride. I get that when it's coming down to it. Let's look at a couple different things here. And one of them is that Michigan, was this today or yesterday? I forget now. Is it still today or is it tomorrow? That's tomorrow. So yesterday or the day before, it was the signing day, and Michigan brought 4 guys in. They end up ranking from On3 Rivals 27th in the country with the 4 players they bring in. Quinn Costello, 6'10" power forward out of Massachusetts, the most highly ranked of the 4, a 46th, so a top 50 player in Costello. Joseph Hartman's a 6'5" shooting guard out of Florida, 83rd ranked, top 100 guy. Malachi Brown, 6'5" small forward from Tennessee, a top 200 guy, ranks 186. And then I would say the big Dane, Marcus Moeller, 7'2", does not have a ranking. Super skinny, needs to put on obviously some weight. You say super skinny. I'm super fat. I need to lose some weight. Super fat. Yeah. Marcus Moeller, 7'2" from Denmark. So there's the 4, and they're in and close to a top 25 class. So that's what Dusty was able to do there. Let's check the upcoming schedule that is brought to you by the Maize and Blue Review. the feed and the channel that you're watching or listening to right now. Give yourself or that U of M fan in your life the gift of the Maize and Blue Review with the holidays right around the corner. Go to we're less than 2 weeks. We're mowing right ahead towards Thanksgiving. Go less than 2 weeks now. Go to on3.com, hit that subscribe button. We'd love to see you over there. We're talking Michigan football and basketball all day, all night. So that upcoming schedule looks a little bit like this. Michigan is off now until the 19th. That is a Wednesday. That is this Wednesday. They bring in Middle Tennessee State for a 6:30 jump. I'm not sure if there's going to be TV for that one or not. At this point right now, it doesn't look like it. So maybe you need to get on out to go see Michigan, or you'll have to just listen to it without being able to see it. So something to keep an eye on, especially if you're in the area and you like watching the team. Then it's out to Vegas for the NIL tournament. They don't call it that, but it's the Players Era. But I think the players cashing in a little bit. They get some deals, some name, image, and likeness deals. I don't know as you win the games if you get more or however that works, but it's part of it. There's going to be a real late night 11:24, 10:30 start on True TV. I know that I have True TV, but I only watch it once or twice a year. And it's during the NCAA tournament. NCAA tournament comes on. You're like, oh, yeah, here we go. True TV. There it is. Michigan will take on San Diego State. And then the next day, 11:25, they are in an 8:30 tilt against Auburn. If they win those games, you get a chance to play then in a championship game. Here's some of the teams that Michigan could run into in that third game: Tennessee, Kansas, St. John's, Houston, Auburn. I guess they're already playing Auburn, Alabama, Gonzaga. I think all of those teams right now are in the top 25. And then you do have some other Big Ten teams in here, like Rutgers and who else? Oregon. Might have mentioned them already. Maryland in there. So that's I'd love to see Michigan run into. Obviously love to see them play in the championship game. Let's see them go up against Kansas. Let's see them go up against St. John's, Houston. We know they've got Villanova and Duke coming up. So I like the games like this. I like if you're going to be, I know some people, it's all, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I have noticed over the years more and more, there's a lot of the fan base, they want to play the easiest schedule that they possibly can in football and in basketball. Don't play anybody that you could possibly lose to. Certainly don't play on the road in football. I've already seen that trickle over to basketball. Like, why is Michigan playing down in Detroit at the Little Caesars Arena when they should be playing this game at home? Oh, this is a quick turnaround against TCU. Look, they're supposed to be one of the best teams this year. When you're one of the best teams, you want to play a heavyweight non-conference schedule to get you ready. And I know the Big Ten, they'll go through that. Basketball, you could do it a little bit more than football. So there's no excuse in basketball. I don't want to hear it myself. But, look, I understand that there are plenty of folks that just want to serve up the easiest schedule they possibly can so they can get the best seeding. They just want W's. They don't care. They would play. If there's I don't know if that's half of the Michigan fan base, but there's a bunch of folks that would just, if they were drawing up the schedule, they don't care about the fans. They don't care about who's going to the games or watching them. They would be playing Tarleton State, Marathon Oil. They would just be running through Huckabuck and the easiest possible teams. Oh, don't play any of the teams from the state of Michigan because, those teams, those kids play so hard. Easiest games possible. Hey, you know what? Everybody's got their opinion. I'm all right with it. So that's it. Michigan, they win this game. Not a cause for an alarm, but some fair criticisms. But in the end, they end up getting the W now. And, And, so I think you're feeling pretty good about where they sit here. Let's take a final couple on the feedback where we're at here. Let's go back up. I was going to see where we are. CK says McKinney's more composed than Cadeau and Kaysen. That's pretty bad. Jeff says he's a former coach. He would have the players run a quarter court sprint for each turnover in practice tomorrow. That would help clean up the poor ball handling and passing. I have heard Dusty talk repeatedly about the turnovers, and I think he's tried everything in the book. The bad cop, good cop, scream and yell, the suicides, what you're talking about. That's what they used to be called. Probably not called that anymore. Whatever. Gassers. Do anything you can. Down ups. Smack them around. I mean, I know you're not doing that anymore, but give him love, give him hate. He's tried all of it, but I'll pass that suggestion along to him. Let's make him run for every turnover. BK, all of that A+ game playing went into the Oakland game. Then they let up and got sloppy. Understandable what you're saying here. BK says this is not a top 10 team, upper teens. Yeah, right now you want to say that, but look, how many of these other teams are you watching that closely? That's the one part, but I think these last two games were they lucky to win last game? It kind of felt like when you survive that way and you're in overtime, felt that way. Were they lucky to win tonight? I don't know. It wasn't the prettiest thing, and they you didn't sit back and say, "Oh yeah, this team, watch out." I think Fraschilla was saying it right. I mean, he said it like 4 or 5 times. Hey, I think this team could be a Final Four team, but boy, the turn, just like everybody is talking about. And he also said repeatedly that they have to find their identity. They're throwing a lot of different lineups out there. They've got a lot of new guys gelling while winning ugly. That's what they're doing here. I'm not trying to make any excuses for them or not, because it's really fugly watching them turn the ball over left and right. It's not fun to watch. It's not like Oakland. These last 2 games have been pretty ugly, sloppy, especially when they just, you throw a pass right out of bounds. I mean, they just do it over and over again. It's not being attached. Guys need to get more attached. We'll see if they're able to do that. Sandro can't wait for tomorrow. College football gives 5 thumbs up. Well, I'm right with you on that, Sandro. I am going to sleep. I am waking up. Gonna make sure I try to get out in the sunshine and stand up upright. Maybe get a workout in, because once noon hits, all day long, let's do it. The athletes in action. It's like watching the Harlem Globetrotters. Oh, Sandro, one of those kind of fans. Okay. All right. All right, Sandro, enjoy the football tomorrow. So that's going to do it here. Michigan wins it 67-61 over TCU. Had some struggles in there. In the end, their size, their physicality, they make the big time plays in the paint. Morez Johnson Jr., Yaxel Lindeborg, they were the ones, and then Burnett with the clutch free throws at the end to seal it up for Michigan, and they're still undefeated. yeah, we are into tomorrow. Enjoy the football game tomorrow. Earlier I talked about the field at Wrigley, and I didn't realize that it was going to be a grass field. And I was doing some reading later. I was like, oh, I got that one wrong. And how they constructed that field, it's they put new sod down. I'm interested to see what that field looks like. That could be one of those kind of situations. What was the game? There's been a few games over the last few years. Like, what kind of cleats are they wearing? Michigan's slipping all over the place. I don't remember exactly. I do remember it was against TCU. They were slipping and sliding all over the place. And then the Super Bowl was played there, maybe on the same grass, and they were slipping around. And I was like, oh, yeah, that was like the Fiesta Bowl that Michigan played in. So that's going to be one of the things to keep an eye on. The wind and the slick, potentially, the field. Let's see what it's going to be like. I don't have a lot of confidence when they throw something down there and they're making this like a one-time deal. To me, that spells watch out for the turf tomorrow. But we'll talk with you after the game tomorrow. Wrigley Field is bizarre. All right. Hopefully not for the Maize and Blue. 67-61. Thanks for staying up late. We will talk with you later on today after the Michigan football game.